Hey everybody, this is Kane from Appalachian ADV, and you are listening to our first official podcast. It's the Appalachian ADV Community Podcast, and I wanted to have a friend of mine join us for this first one because the event that has started this whole thing for me is out of his place. If you've been to the Fool's Ride, you know Jim. So we got Jim on the line here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Fool's Ride and just kind of how we met and kind of go from there. So thanks for coming along, Jim.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, bud.
So, Jim, like I said, Jim is the host for our Fool's Ride, and I just kind of wanted to let him give a little background, like introduction to himself. So, where are you from, Jim, and whatever else you want to tell me.
Sure. So, I guess we can go way back. Born in Florida, moved to the Ohio area around age 3, graduated high school less than a mile from where I live now. Bounced around a little bit. I was a bit of a nomad. Moved to Myrtle Beach for 10 years. Lived in Costa Rica for a few, and then ultimately back from Costa Rica in about 2011. And I've been right here within a mile of where I live, that whole time. Um, Motorcycle wise, this is my background. I actually have a fairly limited motorcycle background. Grew up on four wheelers. Raced as a kid, raced a little bit when I lived in Myrtle Beach, and then came to this area. And a good friend of mine had a Kawasaki, what was it, a KX250F for sale. Having a hard time starting. I thought, you know what, it's cheap. I'll buy it. I'll give it a whirl on motorcycles. And man, did I look like an idiot on that thing. My feet were off the pegs more than they were on it. Everyone laughed at me. I mean, it was pretty comical watching me do it. And if I had to guess, that was probably oh man, about 10 years ago, 2013, 14 when I got that first bike, and then just really fell in love with it and kind of went from there. My business kind of took off, so I had a little bit of extra income and started gathering motorcycles. But really, as far as the dual sport adventure side, I really didn't get into that till about 2017. I think is when I bought, or 2018, I think was my KTM 690 I bought, and just really. I don't know. I was in my 40s, early 40s then, and I was slowing down a little bit on the single track side, and that side just really opened up a whole new world to me. I could ride all day and come home and not feel like I was in a fist fight. A little easier on the body, that sort of thing, and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
That's funny.
Um, yeah.
That's funny. We started close to the same time then, because I actually picked up my first bike around 2011, and then I moved back here around 2015, and so to kind of set that up, like when I moved back here in 2015. I had never ridden before, so I was kind of exploring the area, and I was, unbeknownst to me at the time, I was in your backyard doing a lot of my
Yeah.
scouting and riding and seeing a lot of great stuff down there.
Yep.
So once I decided I wanted to do events, that was the first place I wanted to do an event at because it's, 45 minutes to an hour from my house is all this great stuff. And there was a awesome campground, which happened to be about 2 minutes away from your house. So
Yep.
I put together that Brush Creek Day Tripper event. It was kind of invite only. I invited, handful of guys that I had met through social media, and we went out and had a great time. And then the first time I remember seeing you was on Instagram.
Yeah.
The video, I posted a video and you had comment or you responded to somebody else's comment. Actually, I think it was what it was. So at the time I
Mhm.
was on my V-Strom 650 and I was riding that thing around Wellsville a little bit, not super deep, obviously, because it's freaking crazy in there. But I,
Right.
I put some video with me and OGB scouts and stuff. We went into an area. We found we couldn't keep going, so we turned back around and came back out. And that was kind of the basis of the post. And my memory was some dude went in there and said, maybe you should just ride the right bike. And then you and him went back and forth for like I don't know, a handful of comments back and forth, I remember. And I just watched it and was laughing. And I was impressed by you just basically telling this dude to fuck off, is what it kind of came down to. And
Right.
then eventually I deleted like the train of comments, but I remember right
Right.
after that you and I had kind of connected. Do you
Hmm.
remember anything around that?
I do. It's funny because I have so many, I've met so many people through you at the Fools, and I run into these guys at other events, and I get that question all the time. How did you and Kane meet? And I was like, well, actually, it was online. It's such a weird thing to say for two grown ass men that we met online, but and that's what it was. I remember seeing some of your posts and Brush Creek, and man, that's right down the road, and it's beautiful riding, and I know at some point I sent you a direct message and was like, hey, where do you ride? You're right in my backyard, and it must have been right when you were doing that event down at Jefferson Lake. I think it was
Yeah,
a scouting event
yeah,
or a ride, and you said, hey, we're doing one this weekend or next weekend, whatever. If you got time, come down and meet us. And I rode the 690 down and rode with you guys, and that was that was literally my first, I guess, ADV ride, dual sport ride. Like I had gone out and done a bunch of stuff myself and maybe, met up with a friend here and there, but that would be my first, organized, led,
yeah,
ride, if you will. It wasn't a huge crowd, but, and it was just really fun. I'm a little bit of a loner. I like doing things by myself. I never ask for help. I'm just that guy. So it was weird for me to get in a crowd, if you will, a small
right.
crowd, but but it was really neat, that dynamic, meeting all these new people and seeing. I mean, it's crazy. You think everybody on a motorcycle is this outdoor granola eating, hunting, woodsy guy that grew up in the woods, and that's not the case at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I have so many friends that live in big cities, that this is their escape from the cities, to get out on the motorcycle and just forget about all that crap that's going on in their life. So it's really neat. It's a really neat dynamic meeting all these people.
Yeah, that's been like one of the favorite parts for me is like meeting that wide array of people, like
Yeah.
different political backgrounds, different financial backgrounds, like, you know,
Yep.
all kinds of different people coming together to just enjoy going out and riding a freaking motorcycle in the woods. It's been that's been the most awesome part of this whole thing for sure.
Agree. Me too. I've made some really good friends, and I can't go to an event now, and I'm not the star here. This is your show and your event, but I can't go anywhere with a group of more than 50 adventure riders without multiple people going, "Hey Jim, how you doing?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh man," and I'm terrible with names, so I'm like, "Hey," they're
I
like,
know.
"Yeah, your first fools or the second fools or whatever," and we're
Uh-huh.
coming again. Oh yeah,
I'm the same with names too. I'm pretty good at remembering a face, and
me too.
especially like what's the funny thing, like if I see them geared up with their helmet on the bike, I know exactly who they are. But
Uh-huh.
take all that stuff off and put them in front of me, I'm like, oh man, I can't remember.
Right.
So I apologize now. Anybody this coming year that comes to the event, if it looks like I don't remember you, I do. I'm terrible with names.
Same here. Yep, same thing.
So I remember like one of those scouting rides. I remember had just gotten the Tenere, and I think just you and I went out.
Yep,
I remember going around Brush Creek and that whole area, Hammondsville, Irondale.
yep,
And at some point along that ride, it was like I was starting to plan on the next one for April. And I remember you just out of nowhere, you were kind of like, you know what, you should just have this at my place. Why don't you just
yep.
have this Bulls ride at my house? I was like, really? And then you described, what you had. Um, and I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. That'd be great. And I remember we tried to like, because we live about 45 minutes to an hour away from each other. So we tried
Hmm.
scheduling a time for me to come down there and just, check the area out and everything. And we were able to jive our schedule. So the first time I came to your place was the day before the first Fools Ride event.
Oh wow, I guess I didn't remember that. That's crazy. You put a lot of faith in me.
I know, like that's like in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I hope this isn't like a shit show. Like I'm
Right.
gonna pull into this place and it's gonna be like a
Right.
fucking wreck or something. And it was just everything you had described and more. Like it was such a great place.
Yeah, I guess the only real the big hiccup that I remember from that first year was I was having my building being built, and we just hit a bunch of stumbling blocks, and like everything, it all got behind schedule, and the building wasn't done. I remember the roof was only like half done, so I don't know how many people you had at that first one, 20, 30, 40, whatever. We all kind of huddled under the part where the roof was done, and I didn't have heat yet, so we kind of huddled around a kerosene heater to
Yep.
share heat. Luckily, it wasn't a terribly cold year. Um, I know April in Ohio can be schizophrenic. It can be,
Yeah.
we've had years where we've gone out and it snowed like crazy. You couldn't keep your visor clean. We've had rain. We've had droughts and 75 and dusty and terrible. Ohio is such a weird thing. But yeah, that first one, there were a few bugs to get ironed out. And fortunately, my building got finished quickly after that. And it really does. I'm very, very fortunate to live where I do as far as riding terrain
Yep.
and having the property that I have that we can put, 150, 60, 70 guys down here camping, guys and girls camping, and and everybody's comfortable, provided we don't get a foot of rain.
Yeah. Yeah.
My,
Or a foot of snow.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I remember the year that we got all that terrible rain, and fortunately, I had that big redneck truck, and man, I drug people all through the fields that were getting stuck. My fields are nice, but they're hay fields. They're not nice
Yeah.
flat pasture, so it can get a little challenging if there's piles and piles of rain, but we make it work.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about rain. Like I remember that building like just half built, like I don't
Uh-huh.
think the man doors, nothing were on it. You had the hole in the roof.
Yeah.
It was basically like a foundation and some walls.
Hmm.
And I remember so Marsh, one of the guys that came to that first BC Brush Creek event, and one of the inner circle guys, he said, "Oh, I'll come down early with you," because I showed up early for the fools. So him and I decided, it was raining that night, I remember, and the freaking rain was coming through the roof.
Uh-huh.
But me and him just basically went and put our sleeping bags in a corner and slept in there that night
Yep.
while it was raining like crazy. And the rain actually helped me sleep better, probably. But
Yep, for sure.
and then I do remember, I think it was that next year maybe, we had a bunch of people. It's not much of an incline, but once it gets super saturated like it was that year, it's
Yeah.
terrible. And I remember you dragging people
Oh
all over the
man.
place through your fields to get them
Yeah.
out of stuff.
It was that was by far the worst year. Even the year that it snowed, it wasn't bad.
Yeah,
If you've got two-wheel drive, we try to keep you on the flat spots or keep you up close to the garage or whatnot. But four-wheel
yeah,
drive might tear up the field a little bit, but I don't care. I'm not a farmer, so it doesn't
yeah.
bother me.
So for those who haven't been to the Fool's Ride yet, why don't you describe your property for them and like kind of how we set up?
So I've got 88 acres. If I had to guess, I would say 25 to 40 of that is fields. There's some fields over by my house that we don't utilize, and then the part that we do utilize, maybe 25, 30 acres. It's kind of gently rolling field. I've got a big flat spot in front of I got a big pond. It's probably, I don't know, I call it an acre or two.
Yeah,
And I got a flat spot in front of it at the dam, a flat spot up top by my old barn where people can camp. And then I'm lucky to have a really big building. I don't even remember the size. It's roughly, I think it's 48 by 128 altogether. But the main part that we use for the fools is 48 by 60 or or 68 maybe. It's my it's my pickleball court. I've really gotten into pickleball pretty heavy, and we play there quite a bit. And it was laid out for that. You can see the markings on the floor if you pay attention
uh-huh.
when you're in there eating. And it's really nice. I've got heat in there, and it's very well lit, and it's obviously dry and all that. And it just lends itself really well to be the meeting area. It puts everybody in one spot, and we all go there in the evenings and have dinner and have beers and whatnot. And I'm getting carried away here on the building. So you get my property also I've got some trails out back. I've got some flat spot and then, some big, big hills. And I've got some ATV trails that my wife really enjoys running the dogs on and whatnot. And
Yeah,
it's really we've used that as sort of the litmus test, if you will, for people that are trying to decide, hey, should I do the hardcore, or hey, are my tires good enough?
yeah,
I remember first, second year, that guy had sort of street tires, and it was rainy, a little bit wet. And he said, "Hey, do you think these tires are good enough?" And I said, "Here's how to find out. You go out around this loop, and if you don't bite it on that loop, then your tires are probably good. If you're picking your bike up multiple times, you should either get new tires or stick to the road routes."
Yeah.
And he had to borrow my truck. I don't remember, he didn't have a car. He rode his
Yeah, he
bike
rode
there.
in.
Yeah, so I just gave him the keys of my truck. I said, "Run up to Point View, get you some tires. Let's get you squared away."
Yeah, and then that night we freaking put the tires on for him. I think it was
Yeah.
Buzzsaw, me, Marsh, and a couple other guys.
Yeah, I don't think he ever had to lift a tire lever. Everybody just jumped in and went at it. And
Yeah,
then this last year, which was really cool, you went out and flagged some of those trails,
yeah,
excuse me, so people could, they could go out and give it a try. And then I guess the other thing to mention is the last couple of years, Point View has sent a couple of motorcycles down, two or
yeah,
three, whatnot, as demos. So it's been real nice for people to be able to demo those bikes on my property. They could run the trails back here and try them. They're
yeah,
also, they're dual sport, so they're road legal, street legal, so you can go out and take a little trip down the road, whatnot. But yeah, I know last year you flagged it so people weren't getting lost and they could
yeah,
follow the trail and come back around. And that was a lot of fun. People rode those trails at my place way more honestly than I anticipated, and it
yeah. I
seemed
was
like
surprised.
yeah, hmm
Yeah, that's partially why I wanted to flag them, was because those demo bikes have been a hit, like from Point
yeah,
View, KTM,
for sure, for
and
sure.
I wanted to make sure we didn't get people down the side of one of them freaking crazy ass hills in the back of your property.
Yeah, yeah, I do have some steep ones back
Yeah,
there.
that's a good place if you're not sure if you want. I mean, I wouldn't don't do it on the demo bike, but like if you're unsure if your skills on the bike, go climb a couple of them hills. If you make it up, then you're good. If
Totally
not, then we'll
agree.
come back and help you drag it out of there.
It's because, and you and I have had this discussion a bunch of times. When you ask someone, "What's your riding level? What's your skill level?" That is such a subjective answer because
Yeah,
so maybe and I don't mean to pick on BMWs, but I'm gonna. So maybe I ride I'm on a KTM 690 and I'm with a bunch of older guys that are newer to riding and they're on big bikes, big
mhm,
BMWs or big 1290s or whatnot, KTMs. And we just sort of ride dirt roads and fiddle around in a field now and then. Well, maybe I'm the superstar in that group because that's all the tougher we ride.
right.
Well, so when you ask me where you at on a 1 to 10, man, I'm awesome. I'm a 9. I can ride better than all the guys in my group. Well, now you take me and put me in a group of true dual sport guys that run single track. Now I'm a 2. You know what I mean? So it's such a subjective answer to
Yeah,
ask where they're at. So those trails have been really good to just send people out and say, "Hey, go out and do this loop." And it's nothing difficult at all.
right.
I mean, it's a pretty flat loop, but if it can get wet and whatnot, and if you're comfortable running that loop out here on my property, then you're okay to hit, this adventure stuff. And what I love about your events is that it really pushes people out of their comfort zone. I've had so many guys go, "Man, that's the most difficult, challenging stuff. I never knew my bike could do it. I never knew I could do it. This has been the best weekend of my life." I mean, the response has been
Yeah,
overwhelming. And I've heard that from so many guys, but it's nice. It builds confidence because you're in a group of 30 and you see 23 guys ahead of you on similar bikes
yep,
go through it. Then that gives you the confidence. Your bike can do it. You just
right.
have to twist the throttle a little more or back on the seat or whatever the thing is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So that's what I love about it. It's really nice and then I get pushed out of my comfort zone. You know what I mean? We go,
yeah,
as a lead, I ride conservatively because my bike has to make it through the whole thing. You know what I mean? But I'm also prepared for the most challenging stuff we get to. Maybe we show up to a hill climb and the whole group says, "Nope, I don't want to do it." Okay,
yeah,
fine, we move on. But if one guy says, "Yep, I want to try it," and he goes up there and gets tangled up, I have to be able to get up there and get him, and help him
uh,
because as a lead or a sweep or whatnot. So it pushes me as well. You pick up 40 bikes in a day, you're dragging by the
oh
end of
yeah,
the day. Especially we get a lot of guys on big bikes that want to push their boundaries and we never tell them no. Come on,
right.
bring your 1290 KTM or bring your 1250 GS. We'll help you through it.
Yeah,
And it gets pretty tiring. So I love the challenge. That's what I like most about
That's the whole thing I've been trying to coin, that ADV dual sporting for,
it.
all of my events. And that part of that is too, like, let's provide people with a little controlled trauma and allow
Yep.
them to like get uncomfortable, but have people around them to help them. That
Yep.
every, no matter what it is, if it's a clinic or a rally or a tour or whatever, that's embedded into what I try to do. And I'm
Yep.
glad people are like giving us good feedback. And, there's always, somebody that's going to go a little too far and wreck, and then they're not going to be super happy. But,
For sure.
it's, I mean, I try to tell people, like, I'm not going to tell you that you can or can't do a thing. I'm going to tell you
Right.
what the thing is, and I'm going to let you decide. And if you need help getting through it, we'll help you get through it, because it has
Absolutely.
to be their choice to do it. Otherwise, you don't want to be forcing people to do things that they're not comfortable with. And even if, for the most part, you and the other guys that help me lead and sweep things, fairly capable riders.
Right.
And if somebody does get stuck into a thing, somebody in that group can just jump on the bike and get it out for them. So it's not like we're just going to leave somebody in the woods too. So,
100%.
that's
There's nothing, we do some challenging things, no questions about it. But I have never, at your events, we've never led someone into something that their bike can't get out. Rider
right.
ability might hold you back, or confidence, or whatever the thing is. But you're right. There's someone in that group, a lead, a sweep, or riders in between that can 100% jump on your bike, get it upright, and get it out of whatever the thing is
Right.
that you're in. You don't get led into, impossible spots. So,
Right. And there are a ton of those impossible spots,
oh yeah,
especially
for
in
sure.
like Forbidden Zone, Wellsville area. Like,
Oh
and
man,
that,
yeah,
having you and, Marsh, Buzzsaw, Kurt, and Jamie, some of those guys that really know that area well,
yeah,
me being able to lean on you guys to take me into some of those places so that I know
yep.
where I can take people and where I should keep people away from. That's been like huge. It's
Well,
huge.
the scouting, yeah, the scouting you do just blows my mind how much time you spend on these trails scouting and changing up the routes from year to year. But last year was a perfect example. You can scout all you want and you come show up to the event a couple days early, then we go out and do a pre-run and realize, oh my God, that creek is 4 feet high. There is no way around it. And even the alternate way around, Nine Creeks, that is what I'm
Yeah.
talking about last week.
Yep.
We went through Nine Creeks. I was on a 690. My cousin was on an 890 that was brand new, well, brand new to him. He bought it for me actually the weekend of that event. Um, Matt Kelly was with us on a big Honda. I don't remember. We had another couple other big bikes, and then my uncle was sweeping on a KTM 500,
Yeah.
and Matt was with us as well on his small bike. He
Yeah.
had that
Yeah.
Vane, and the alternate around that final creek crossing, because the creek it had to have been 5 feet deep. I mean, it was
At
it was
least.
treacherous. No way you were getting across. The alternate route, it was terrible. Like it took us an hour to get our 5, 6, 7 guys up over that, and
Yeah.
all very competent riders. So we come back and we were doing a little pre-scout for you to make sure Nine
Yep.
Creeks was good. And that was the first thing we said is absolutely not. You don't want to drag
Yeah.
30 bikes through here. That is not it is a nearly impossible. You really kill someone's confidence. You take them into something like that to
Yeah.
where you see the best riders in the group failing and flipping their bikes and dragging things around. So, but it just shows you you can do all the scouting you want. Doesn't mean shit until the weekend of
Yeah.
the actual ride because the terrain just changes so dramatically.
The funny thing about that spot you're talking about is it's such a small hill, truthfully.
Yeah.
Like, it's got a
Yep.
pretty steep pitch to it, but if
Yep.
you just sit there and look at it, like, oh, that's nothing. But then
Yep.
I remember it was just because I remember watching Matt's video, but I remember I actually walked down there
Yep.
on my way to your house and kind of saw it was pretty gnarly. Like,
Yep.
it's the lead up to it was impossible. Like, super thick
Oh,
mud. You're on a
yep.
slight bend to get to it before you can line the straight
Yep.
up. There's no way to get
Yep.
any momentum on that thing.
Nope. It was bad. The mud at the bottom, like it wasn't impassable mud, but you're right. Zero run up to the
Yeah.
hill because you have to make a turn. So you couldn't hit the turn at 30 because the mud was a foot deep and you'd have just shot over the hill into the creek. So you
Yeah.
had to keep it slow enough to get around that turn and then just absolutely twist the throttle to the moon and hope your tires cleared out to
Yeah.
get you up over. It was bad. I think Matt Kelly may have been the only person to make it
Yeah.
clean.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
it was bad. Yeah, we drug most of the bike. I took a couple of shots at it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, didn't have to get drug up over, but I'm pretty lucky to have a smaller bike. Had brand new Desert HTs on it, and they dig pretty well. But
If
it
I
was
remember
just
Matt's video, Life's Journey
oh
of
man.
50, Matt
Yep.
McCourt, our buddy, I remember
Yep.
him just basically ride it as far as he could and then just jumping off and throwing the bike forward at the same
Yeah.
time.
And then he rolled back to the bottom.
Yeah, and then he rolled the bottom. That was awesome. That was so
Yeah,
awesome.
it was
So,
pretty
like,
funny.
going back to what you said about spending the time down there, like, the good
Hmm.
part for me, like, for this Fools Ride at least, is it is so close. Like, I can just, from my house, I could jump on my bike. I could be down there to the top of the adventure loops at least, probably in like 30, 35 minutes. So it's super close.
Yep.
And then being, from 2015 to now, spending so much time down there and then having you as a local person and some of the other guys that help like pointing me in the right directions, it makes it easier for me to make those adjustments. But I
For
still have to
sure.
come down there to make sure something didn't get paved or a road isn't blocked or
Yeah.
any of that kind of stuff. But you know, uh, unfortunately, last year that part that we were just talking about with that terrible short hill that hard everybody had trouble with, and I
Yep.
couldn't take people down there, of course.
No.
But that
No.
that whole piece from where you enter that to the exit of that is one of my favorite things to show
Me
people on the
too.
Fools Ride, and I was so bummed that we couldn't do it.
Me
But the
too.
good part is, like you kind of mentioned before, I do try to change up these routes every year. So the
Yep.
people that were here at Fools Ride 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they had seen that before. And then
Hmm.
we showed them some new stuff that last year that they didn't see 2 years ago. And then the people that came last year, my hope is that that route will be available for us this year, weather pending. And then now
Right.
they'll see something new too. So that's definitely like the goal is to try to change it up enough to where it's different. You might be running through the same things, but maybe it's in a different place on the route, or we're running it in a different direction or something like that. So
Yeah,
it's
I know.
definitely
I
like a
know.
lot of work, but spending the time down there has made it easier for me to make the adjustment because basically you guys came back and said we can't do that. So
Right.
I said, all right, we
Right.
already have a bypass set up. We'll just do this, this, this instead, and we'll call it a day. And I think it worked out pretty well.
It does suck missing that hollow because going through that tunnel at
Oh
the
my
end
God.
is a big hit with guys. If you've never been able to ride through it's not a long tunnel. It's the
Yeah.
creek runs through it, but it's really really neat. I get goosebumps every time I drive through it, and I've been through it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honk my horn like a little 12-year-old as I'm going through it. Everybody revs their engine. It's just kind of neat. So
Yeah, it's funny because you can hear it after you're beeping and come through and you're out the other side. You hear everybody else doing the same thing behind you. It's so much
yeah.
fun.
It's not me. It's not just me that's the 12-year-old kid at heart. It's everybody behind me doing the same thing, revving their engines and honking the horn, and yeah, it's fun.
Yep. I'm trying to think of so there that other year. It's worth mentioning since we're kind of already talking about past Fools Rides and we're in that zone. We kind of mentioned the year that it snowed a bunch. Like that year was just insane, and
It
it
was.
like obviously call it the Fools Ride for multiple reasons, and one of them being we're doing this event in Northeast Ohio in April,
Right.
and for years past it was always kind of like early to mid-April. This coming year, I had to push it back to the end of April just because, March Moto Madness and then Easter, that floating Easter thing kind of screws with it too. So having those two things in April, I had to push it back a little bit later.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll get better weather. That means, but that one year, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago at this point. I'm lose track after 5 or 6 seasons in, where it just was like, I think you still didn't have heat in the barn. So
Right.
that
It was
tells
all
me it was
closed.
probably more
It
than
didn't
2 years
have
ago.
heat yet. Yep.
And it was like 20 something degrees, 30 degrees at night. And then
Yep.
during the day, it would go from like blue, sunny sky to super cloudy and hazy to rain to sleet to hail and snow. And then it would repeat that whole thing. And
Yep.
just like a bunch of fools, we did not care. We just still went out. Everybody that was there still went out and rode, still had a pretty good time. And especially the kind of riding we do, at least for the ADV dual sporting / dual sporting type. You're working a bit more, so you're actually working up a sweat even though it's cold.
Yep.
And the creeks were still pretty high that year. I remember a couple videos where running through them creeks where it's up to the seat in a couple spots. Like
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's
it's
pretty
pretty
special.
freaking crazy.
I remember I remember the first day out, I didn't wear I've heated gear and I didn't wear it.
Yeah,
And I remember I was layered up and everything, but coming home I was frozen. I mean, absolutely frozen. So the next day the heated gear came on.
yeah,
It's the only year I remember needing it was
yep,
that year. It was brutal. You
yeah,
know,
for
you'd
sure.
put your visor down to keep the snow from beating you in the face, and then your visor would get covered with a layer of snow and ice, and it was impossible to clean, and then fog, and it
Yeah,
was it was challenging to say the least. But everybody made
yeah.
it. We all survived, and have a good story to tell afterward.
You mentioned before about like when you lead and sweep, how you have to kind of like help people out, and it's tiring. And um,
Hmm.
like when I first started doing this event, for me it was I wanted the Tenere to run through all this crazy stuff and do that ADV dual sporting thing, and I have. The people that came to the Fools last year, they saw I brought the Tenere, but I pretty much rode the KLX the whole time because
Right.
it's just a lot of work, and making it easier on myself,
Yep.
especially as I'm getting older, is probably smarter.
Hmm.
So that year where we had that snow, sleet, hail thing, I was on the Tenere, and I
Yep.
remember riding up Dungeon Hollow, and there's them little weird paver things through that
Yeah.
creek.
On the gas line.
And I remember scouting that like a few days before that, went through it no issue. And I think
Hmm.
OGB was with me scouting it, and he
Yep.
slid a little bit, but he made it through it, no problem. So then I'm bringing this group through there, pretty big group that year, I think. And same thing, I was like, okay, I remember that paver thing's there. It's a little slick. I better watch. And it's in my mind. So then, of course, I freaking slide out and drop my bike in the middle of the freaking creek, upside
Uh-huh.
down, because I made it up the hill and the back end kind of kicked around and then threw me over. So I real
Yep.
fast, I picked the bike up, and then everybody's around just kind of looking at me because nobody expects me to fall
Right.
over.
You're right. You're the lead. You're not supposed to
Yeah.
do that.
But I try to tell everybody falls. So, people just do it less
Yeah.
often, ready to get.
Yeah.
But, it caught me that day. And, everybody helped me pick the bike up. And then OGB, who's sweeping for me, ends up
Hmm.
coming all the way up and helped me. And then him and I are trying to pick this bike up. And the next thing I know is I feel a big splash of water. And I look to my side, and OGB isn't there anymore because he's swimming in the freaking creek next to me.
Yeah.
And so we get the bike out of there. Everybody gets through. And I remember you were telling me the next day he was freezing his ass off because he was soaking wet.
His gloves were soaked. Yeah, we stopped at the monument down in, the Brush Creek area
Yeah.
in backside of Burgles, and he's like, "Hey man," he goes, "I got to turn around." He's like, "My hands are frozen, my gloves are soaking wet." I was like, "What, man? Why did you say so?" And fortunately I had a spare pair of gloves in the back of my bike, and I gave them to him. I said, "Man, you should have said something. I would have thrown them in the dryer." And those guys told me I wasn't on your ride. I was leading a different ride, but they told
Yeah.
me that he took a big header into the creek, like completely underwater. And
Yeah.
then I heard him tell the story after a couple of beers of just laying there and he could see the water flooding into his helmet around his goggles. I thought, oh man, I would have probably packed my shit in and went home right then.
I know. I can't believe he stuck it
He
out.
kept
And he just
going.
kept going. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
mean, that
that
was so
spot is
cool.
yeah, that spot's probably, it's probably about the middle of Dungeon Hollow, so you've got to get out of Dungeon, but then man, at that point, you're 3, 4 miles from base camp. I mean, he could have ridden right back, gotten dry clothes,
Yeah.
caught up with you later, but nope, he kept right on going. He's tougher than I am.
I know. Like right after that happened, we went and stopped at lunch, I think, over there. And my cousin Drew was around hanging out. He was taking his pictures here and there. And I
Hmm.
called him up. I'm like, dude, you're like 4 miles away from me. Can you just grab me a new pair of socks and bring me some socks
Right?
because they were soaking wet?
So bad.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about was you were actually on my first Allegheny backcountry adventure loop tour. The
Yep.
first year I did that. So the same deal. I came back to the area in 2015, and along with scouting the Fools Ride, I was scouting like the Allegheny area and the PA Wilds area, and I put together a loop up there, and my intention was, to make that into like a BDR style tour where we're picking up camp each night and everything. And just like that Brush Creek Day Tripper event that I did, where I just kind of invited people, I did the same thing for that Allegheny tour, like where I just invited basically a lot of the same guys that came to that first Brush Creek event, and then a couple
Yep.
guys who missed that one, and then you and OGB, and we all went out and did like the expert version of my Allegheny tour, where we hit, paved roads, the dirt gravel stuff, and we also hit a bunch of trails, like trails throughout the area, including the Allegheny National Forest trails. And we didn't do like Pen Oak, like the super, super hard one, but we hit, we hit all of Willow Creek basically. We hit a piece of Rocky Gap South Loop, and then we hit the Marionville, a piece of the Marionville and the Timberline. And we were fully loaded bikes, camping gear, everything we need to live off those bikes for a few days. And our crazy asses are riding through all kind of gnarly stuff. And the biggest memory I have from you was Jim's Bagel Bar. So can you tell me a little bit about Jim's Bagel Bar on the back of that KTM of yours?
I can. So in my defense, that was actually my first moto camping trip. I had never, I've done a ton of camping as a kid. By that time I had, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years of motorcycle riding under my belt, but I had never packed all my gear on the motorcycle and gone out on a multi-day trip where we were camping along the way. That was the first time. So I didn't know what to pack. I had never been to this section of PA. I didn't know, I had it in my head, man, we're going to be out in the wild and never past stores and restaurants. And, I better take some food with me. And so both my side bags were camping gear and clothing and, whatnot. But I had one of the, the quintessential Harbor Freight lock boxes as my tail bag. And that entire thing I had full of food. I had, bagels travel well, so I had a whole sleeve of bagels, and I had peanut butter and jelly, and I had salmon and tuna, and I'm a big guy. I like to eat, so we would stop, and I would just crack that thing open, and if we were on a 15-20 minute break, I'd bust out a bagel and slather some some salmon on it, and I took a lot of heat for having all that food with me, and ultimately it turned out to be a terrible mistake because. I forget the section where we go up and hit whatever that loop is that was more single track oriented,
Willow Creek,
where
I think it was, yeah.
yeah, where everybody could take their saddlebags off and
Yep.
kind of leave them sit there and run the loop. Well, my Harbor Freight box was bolted onto my rear rack. I couldn't take it off. Well, a bunch of guys went out ahead, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and run it. Pulled my bags off, and I was convinced I was gonna catch them, so I was ripping through that thing. And when I got back to camp that night, my food box, everything was destroyed. The peanut butter got busted open, the jelly I had crap scattered everywhere. It was like a whole big soup of all my food, so I had to pitch half of it. I'm like, what an idiot. So I've learned my lesson. I take food now with me, but I've learned through all my trips and whatnot. In fact, me and a group just recently did the Northeast BDR, and even as remote as that is, up in some of the sections of Maine and whatnot, you're passing a little mom and pop grocery store, gas station.
Yeah.
There's Dollar Generals. Oh my goodness,
Everywhere.
all over the Northeast. You can't go 5 miles without hitting a Dollar General. So I've learned to go easy. Take water, maybe have a sandwich or some granola or a snack just in case you need it, just if some
Yeah.
hunger hits you and you're not in a good spot. But yeah, packing piles and piles of food, absolutely unnecessary. And now I know.
That's funny. Yeah, it's how you learn a lot, really, is that trial
Yeah.
and error thing. So,
Yeah. Well, you come back from those trips and you pull out all your gear and you make two piles. You make the pile of things you did use and the
yeah.
pile of things you didn't use, and then
Hmm.
you readjust for the next time. Some things you hope you never use, like your tools. You
Yeah.
hope you don't have to replace a flat or a tube. You still got to carry it, but
Yeah.
you know, then you've got the other dumb things that you think are so important, like these piles of food or,
Yeah.
an umbrella or, spare tennis shoes. Like I'm not going out and running while I'm there.
Yeah.
You just whittle it down. You get more efficient at packing and what you're going to take with you, and you know, you figure it out.
Yeah, I mean the good thing and the problem with like adventure bikes is they're nice and big and comfortable, and you can ride pretty comfortably on tons of different terrain. And if you put,
Hmm.
either a hard case or a soft bag or, tail bags, and you can put so much shit on these bikes, it's ridiculous.
And yep,
And like you're saying, half of it you really don't need. I
nope.
remember when I first started, same deal on my V-Strom, and I started doing that moto camping off the bike. It looked like a freaking clown car with so much shit on it. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. It's so easy when you've got the space to go, oh, I can just go ahead and chuck this in there. Well, then next thing you know, you've got 70 pounds of gear and you have drastically changed, the weight distribution on your bike, and it handles like a completely different machine, and you
yeah,
start drastically limiting what you can do off-road in the tougher sections. So yeah,
yep,
I'm a big fan of packing as light as humanly possible. And again, especially when you're in a group of three, four, five guys, chances are if you forgot it, somebody else has it with them. Or
yeah,
if not, if you've got a catastrophic bike failure, well, you got four or five other guys with you. Somebody can go get help or buy a tool or a part or a
yeah,
whatever. You'll figure out how to get out of the situation.
yeah. It's something something I've learned from leading groups, whether it be, it's definitely different. You got to handle things differently if it's like a rally event where you're just doing a day loop, or if it's a tour where you're doing multiple days off the bike. Like that's the kind of stuff that I learned too. Is you know, generally I try to have somebody that I know from the inner circle kind of
Hmm.
sweep for me on these tours, and then between the
Yep.
two of us, we can carry a majority of the things that people need. Like
Right.
for emergency situation, like a tool, like I carry a huge tool roll, air
Yep.
compressor, tubes, all that kind of crap. The
Yep.
sweep can also carry, some level of that thing. We
Yep.
carry like I kind of customize a first aid kit. It's got tourniquet and quick clot, but some general first
Right.
aid stuff too. So between the two of us, we try to carry a bunch of that stuff. So I
Yep.
can tell people, hey, you don't need to bring a giant tool roll. If you have like a
Right.
very specialized tool you need for a specific thing, maybe bring that, but
Right.
carry less weight. That's it. Let me be the one that's carrying a bit more of that stuff. So that's been something
Absolutely.
I definitely learned too through leading these groups through the years.
Yep. Yeah, especially because again, a lot of the guys coming to your events, maybe it's their first real, they're really pushing their boundaries,
Yeah.
they're really pushing themselves and doing something that they're not comfortable or haven't normally done. So you want that bike as close to, stock weight as possible. You want some good tires and maybe crash protection lights, whatever, but you want that thing, you want your weight distribution to be light and close to stock. So
Yep.
you don't change the way the bike feels when you get in the woods and get in the gnarly stuff. You want all the advantages you can.
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of mentioned like this inner circle thing a couple times throughout this, and just a little background on that, just so people know a bit more what I'm talking about when I say those words. So when I first started doing this Appalachian ADV thing, um, the first couple events I did, so I did the Brush Creek Day Tripper Rally. The first tour I actually did was later that same year, the PA Wilds tour I did, and
Yep.
then the following year, the Allegheny tour that you joined in. So a lot of the people that came to those first events, um, a lot of them were from this region, at least like Northeast-ish Ohio, Western Pennsylvania. So we're all
Yep.
fairly close together. A lot of these guys know the Fools area, or they've come out, to Pennsylvania with me and done some things. So I've tried to like keep those guys around because not only that, that they know those things and they help me with stuff, but they're just freaking awesome guys. Like,
Hmm.
I think when I first started doing this, and those guys that came to that Brush Creek Day Tripper, to the PA Wilds, to the Allegheny thing, I think a lot of those guys were just as good, if not better, riders than I am, depending on, the bike and all that stuff. But like for sure,
Right.
these guys can ride. Like, and
Right.
I
Right.
tried to learn as much as I could by riding with them
Hmm.
to better my own skills as we were making this up. So trying to have those guys stick around to help me and just have a good time with them. try to go to like Red River Scramble. It's an event that I, help support. I've been trying to get, some of the guys to come down with me, and we just kind of have a good time. This year we
Yep.
did that. Marsh came down, and it was just super fun. So those are the guys I'm kind of talking about. And like this morning, I sent an email out to that group. And at first when we first started doing this, it was just a handful of us. And now that I've been doing this more and meeting more and more awesome people, like there's about 20-ish people that were on that email distribution list this
Yep.
morning. Not that all
Yep.
of them will be available or able to help me, at some of these events, but just to have them around and keep them in the back pocket and be able to hang out with them and go out and grab a beer and that kind of stuff. It's been awesome. And then, another thing that I noticed right away when I first started doing this from that very first event, like Marsh and Kurt, and I can't remember the other guys' names at the top of my head right now. They were kind of friends. They kind of came together. But like Buzzsaw and some of these other guys, they didn't know them. But we all live so close together that now these guys have become like really close friends, and they go out and they do stuff together. That has been super awesome. Like just to watch this
Yeah.
thing that I'm trying to build help other people find other people, make these awesome connections and friendships. And some of them, like, we got a couple guys that are from New York or down south by, North Carolina, Virginia, that, you know, every time they come up to an event, it's just like we pick up where we left off. So maybe we don't see them as often, but it's still that same friendship and kinship is there. So that has been like a really awesome thing.
Agreed. I've made some really, really good friends through your rides. Like you mentioned, Jamie, Kurt, Marsh, Buzzsaw. Like I ride single track with those guys all the time. Jamie and Kurt have probably leaned a little bit away from the adventure side and doing more single
Yeah.
track. But yeah, I've become very, very close with those guys. In fact, those two, Jamie and Kurt, are both uh, two of the 15 owners up at Forbidden Zone that we all ended up buying that campground to
Yeah. Yeah.
save access to that last riding area. So yeah, I've gotten to know those guys really, really well, and it's all because of your events. And I've made a lot of other good friends, through your events, and I've brought friends in that I
Yeah.
know would really enjoy, and also you can benefit from. And that inner circle thing, talking about that, it's when you're leading, it's so important that you're confident in the guy sweeping for you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get spread out. It's as a lead, you can't just look back and see your sweep. That's not how it works. You get spread out over the
Yeah.
course of a couple of miles, and you have to be confident that, hey, that guy's got it.
Yeah.
If three guys back get jammed up and fall over in a creek and need help, I know my sweep is going to, he'll know what to do. He'll know how to get them up and get them squared away and get their bike out. Or if something gets jammed up in their emergency, he can get the help. So
Yeah.
that's where, you just don't want to pick a random guy out of the crowd to sweep. You want someone who knows the area and that you're confident, in his ability to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a great experience for sure. I've met a lot of good people and made some real good friends. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure I'll make 100 more over the years. It's every year I meet someone new that you really click with, and
Yeah.
you meet someone that they might only live 10 miles away, and you just had no idea that they were an adventure rider
Yeah.
or dual sport or whatnot.
Yeah. And that's, in the past couple years, I've been really trying to push that community thing. And that's why I wanted to call this podcast the Appalachian ADV Community,
Yep.
because we've met, so many great people, whether it's,
Yep.
somebody that's kind of like me who's trying to do a thing, or, people that are a bit more established, or just people that want to come out and have a good time. Like
Yep.
that has been a huge thing. And I've, talking about Whalen Wayne weekend and Chad, it's been that same thing. Like one of the guys that came to my first Brush Creek event, I met at Whalen Wayne. His name was Joel. He lived up in Michigan, and we became
Yep.
friends. And then when I did
Yep.
this Brush Creek thing, I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, man, I know you're up in Michigan, but I'd love for you to come down and ride this with me and give me some feedback." And he did. So like, it's just I want to give people a place. We kind of mentioned it earlier. Like I don't care who you voted for. I don't care
Right.
how much money you got. I don't care about any of that stuff. All I care about is that you want to come out and hang out with us, have a good time, and help me drag bikes through the woods. Like that's kind of
Yep.
what it comes down to.
It's funny, you kind of touched on that earlier when we first got started, and that really that really is true. Like you'll get guys that roll in and they're in an old beat up truck, and they're and not picking on anyone, but you see guys that roll in, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they were literally fixing their bike the night before, and they come out, and then you've got guys that, they're CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that, the money coming to this event is nothing to them. But when you get on the bikes, or you sit down after the ride at the table and have a beer, you're equals. There's no, oh, well, he's richer or he's poorer or he's more experienced and I'm new on a bike. You're all equals when you sit down at that table and you're just bullshitting about all the fun things that happened during the day, or someone's epic crash, or someone that mastered this hill climb. You all share that common love for riding, and
Yeah.
it's just all of that crap goes out the window. Your job, your status, your politics, none of
Mhm.
that crap matters when you're sitting at that table having dinner and having a beer and bullshitting about the ride or past rides or future rides or whatever. And that's what I like the most about it.
Yeah. That's I tried to pull that kind of from, I played football starting in middle school through high school. I played a couple years when I was in the Air Force active duty, and then I coached for about 10 years. And when I
Yep.
started coaching, I was coaching middle school kids mostly. And
Hmm.
when you're in that summer conditioning part, they look like kids because it's just you out there running around the
Yep.
field. Once they started putting the
Yep.
pads on, it you can see the team develop. You can see that be a thing
Hmm.
because everybody kind of looks the same. We're all wearing helmets, we're all wearing shoulder pads. And then I started seeing that with the motorcycle. Like, oh, we're putting
Right.
helmets on, we're putting our gloves on,
Yep.
we're putting this gear on, and we're going and
Yep.
riding out into the fields and stuff. It was such a good correlation for me to try to bring that more into it, that community, that team feel. That was like a big push for me because I come from team
Right.
sports. I think you get a lot out of those, and I think you can put that into motorcycling in some form or fashion.
For sure. And it's just such a diverse group, man. I mean, you get people from all over the country coming, and from all socioeconomic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. Doesn't matter what color your skin is, what religion you are. We're just all here to ride bikes and have a good time, and we share that. And there's a real brotherhood, if you will, based on that common interest.
Right? Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's
before
good.
we close this out, I think real quick we should maybe talk about the future. We've talked a lot
Yeah.
about the past and kind of what's going on like right now, but we have a Fool's Ride coming up here in a few short months. At this point, it is sold out. I think I put that on a social media post not too long ago. It took less than 6 weeks. It
Wow.
is a small event. Like I put out about 165 tickets,
Yep.
um, and that from the beginning, that Brush Creek rally to last year or to 2 years ago, I should say, the event doubled each year. Last year, the year before it was 135. Last year it was about 150. So my goal of this event was to try to get 150 people to show up at your house. And last year, 2 years ago, I should say, the event sold out about 2 weeks before the event. Last year, it
Yep.
sold out about 2 months before. This year, it took only 6 weeks for that all the tickets to be gone,
That's
which
crazy.
that awesome in more ways than one. Like every year at this time, I start to get a little stressed because it's a complete reset. Like
Right?
just because I sold all these tickets last year doesn't mean I'm going to sell anything this year.
Right.
So for me to sell that thing out that quick, it makes me feel much better about what I'm doing and what's going on. Um, but like as far as the Fool's Ride for this coming year, I think the way we set up last year worked pretty well. Um,
Agreed.
what did you think about last year?
But I loved it. That's one thing that I really like about your events. And I'm not taking away from the big events that have 500 plus people.
Sure.
It's great in their own right. You know what I mean? But that's one of the things people love so much about your event is that you can come to your event with 150, 160 people. And I feel like in some small way, you interact with everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
not well, my God, I don't know how you eat because you're just nonstop interacting with everyone. It's bad enough me being the host, but you as the guy running the event, it's nonstop for you. But as a participant, when you've got that small intimate group, like we all sit down inside the building at the tables
Yeah.
and eat, and when you do the giveaways and the talks and you show the movies, like you get to bump into all 150 people, and that's just something you don't get at these big 500 people events or 1,000 people. I mean, I know they got a lot more going on with, like, trailers, like Harley comes in and Yamaha, but I think that
Yeah.
spreads the event out, and you don't get that personal touch that you do with your event. And obviously it's a big hit because you blew the thing out in 6 weeks and sold all the tickets. The food lines, that's another big one. I,
Yeah.
I, I don't want to pick on any particular event, but one that I can remember specifically is, March Moto Madness. You go down there, and when it's time to eat, you look at that line, and my God, it runs 300 people deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's whereas yours, you jump in line, there's 20, 30 guys ahead of you, but boom, you blow through, and you're down with a plate of food eating.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's a nice, intimate event. Everybody shares that same common goal. You get to bullshit with people, just, people you've seen over the years, meeting new people. And I just
Yeah.
like some of the bigger events. Again, I'm a bit of a, I think I've mentioned this, I'm a bit of an outcast. I just kind of a loner, like to do my own thing. I go to some of these big events. I drive my RV in, go to the event. Half the time I don't even, like, I'll get my plate of food and go back to my RV. Like,
Yeah.
you don't get that personal feel. But man, I'm usually at the Fools. I'm one of the last guys around the fire drinking a beer, bullshitting with people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just different. In a very good way. It's different.
Yeah. That was my goal with this whole thing. No matter what type of event it is, I'd like it to be a smaller number of people just
Hmm.
because it is more intimate. You do get a chance to interact more with people. And I can,
Yep.
like you're saying, with the meals, like we can shove everybody in that barn at the same time
Yep.
and, people can mingle. That's part of the whole thing for sure.
Yep. For
Um,
sure.
so like this coming Fools, I think my my plan at least is to kind of set up, yeah, like I think you mentioned at some point when we talked in the past, like this is a riders event. I don't do you like you mentioned, I don't have demo trucks coming in. We have a couple demo bikes there, but we don't have like you big thing. There's not a bunch of big vendors trying to sell you things. Like
Right.
it is about the riding. So I
Yep.
want you to get your ass kicked while you're out there riding. So by the time you come back to camp, you don't want to do a slow race. You don't want to do a confidence course thing. You just want to
Right.
sit around, BS, get something to eat, and then go to bed because the next day is going to kick your ass again. So
Yep.
that's kind of been the push for that event for sure. So this coming year, we're going to keep doing, multiple loops for the adventure riders. Since I've been doing these clinics, I've been seeing more and more interest in like those beginner intermediate people trying to come out. And then so
Hmm.
I give them the dirt gravel road loops. And off of some of
Yep.
those loops, there are some like challenge areas, we call them, where it's
Yep.
optional. They generally start and stop at the same place or right next to each other. If you want to test your skills, go for it. There's people there that'll help you. If not, just sit there and watch everybody else fall in the creek or not make the hill climb and laugh at them after you know they're
Yep.
good and then help them
Right.
get out of there. So those work pretty well. Last year was the first year we kind of did more specific dual sport loops. So
Right.
I set up those 3 dual sport loops. We had multiple leads, so we had nice small groups. We
Yep.
had a couple big bikes jump in because I do make them, like you kind of mentioned, we try to make them big bike friendly. That
Yep.
doesn't mean they're easy, and it means you're going to have a hard time still, but you can make it through as long as you have the skill. So we
Yep.
set a few of those up. And then last year, um, Buzzsaw came down there on Thursday, and he's like, "Hey, man, I think I want to do a single track ride." And there's a bunch of people that are interested. So Ed took out the adventure guys first, and then a bunch of single track people line up. And I was pretty surprised by, it's early in the event. There's really not that many people here, but he had a pretty good sized group
He
that
did.
wanted to do that.
Yes, he did.
So, for this coming year, we're going to do that same kind of a setup, but try to let people ride that single track a bit more. So have some of that riding each day too, potentially. So since the single track, people have been to the Fools Ride, they kind of know the spiel, but that single track thing, so the one thing that I've been promoting it as is it's dual sport bike only.
Right.
I'm pretty sure there are people that can ride a big bike through it, but from everything that I've heard from you and Buzzsaw and those guys, like it is some of the toughest single track in the state.
It
So
is
if people
fantastic.
want to try it, that's awesome. It's required that you ride it on a dual sport bike first. And if you want to go back in with a big bike, maybe then, but I'm not trying to beat the shit out of these guys that are helping us lead rides or the people that are in the group to drag a big ass bike through that stuff. So maybe if you can maybe talk a little bit about the single track thing.
For sure. Yeah, it's literally a mile from my house. And I so there's oh geez, I forget the name of these guys out in Burgles that run the enduro. They did a dual sport last year and they did a 26-mile loop through there. I think overall there's 40 miles of overall trails through there, and I mean it's gnarly. It's I have a 300 KTM two-stroke that I ride through there with some guys, and there are definitely sections that it's a 50-50 chance if I make it on the first try, and that's on my 300. I feel pretty confident on my 690 when it comes to riding all the events I do. There is no way in hell I would ever take my 690 through there. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, um, you're not a pro rider and you could hop on a 690 and run that loop. There are guys that can do it, but I can tell you the vast majority, 99% of the people that come to this event do not want to be on a 690, a 10 array, a V-Strom running that single track. It's gnarly. Like
Yeah.
you want to be on a dirt bike, um, dual sport, whatever you want to call it. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't run on anything bigger than maybe a KTM 500, and
Yeah.
you want good tires. You don't want to be in there with a 50/50 tire, especially if we get any amount of rain. But the reality is, if you like single track, in my opinion, it's some of the best single track in the state.
Yeah.
Huge elevation changes, and it really doesn't get ridden that much. So you're not running through big ruts and massive rocks, and like it's loamy. You got lots of traction, and there's tons of hill climbs that you can hit if you want to. You don't have to, but there are tons of like gnarly hill climbs. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
kick your ass. Those guys come back beat up and tired, perfect example. My uncle is a very capable rider, and he came to your event last year. He had his
Yep.
KTM 500, and he decided to do the single track loop. I think on the last day, he was on stock tires that uh, 500 comes, and I don't remember what that thing has. It's a block style, like
Yeah.
a TKC 80 or 90 or whatever. And he came back, and he is very capable on a dirt bike. He got his ass handed to him because of those tires. It was a
Yeah.
50/50 stock tire, and he was all over the place, dropped the bike a pile of times, a bunch of hills he had trouble making
Yeah.
it up. So you want to make sure your bike's squared away. You want to be on a dirt bike or a very capable dual sport bike, and you're familiar with challenging single track. It's
Yeah.
not something, it's not the kind of thing that you're on a V-Strom or a 690 or heaven forbid a big bike, a KTM 890 or a 1290 or a 1250, whatever, and you want to challenge yourself. That's not the ride for you.
Yeah.
Because what you'll do is you'll get in there and you'll lay that bike in a big hole, and it'll take all 10 guys with ropes and straps to get your bike up out.
Yeah.
I can probably only name one guy off the top of my head, and I don't want to say his name because his head's big enough already, that could capably ride a Harley Davidson Pan Am through that section, and
Yeah.
he would tell you absolutely don't even think about doing it.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about, and I'm pretty sure he could
I'm
do it.
sure I'm sure he'll know who we're talking about
Yeah.
too. Here's this podcast.
So like I think that's the point I wanted to drive home was like if you get stuck in there, it's going to take the whole group to get you out of that thing, and that's burning a lot of people's energy out, and it's
Right.
already tough enough. And I would say that there might be some spots in there that you get into that it might be next to impossible to get your bike out of.
100%. And that's the other point I forgot to make. So your events are laid out so well. Like you talked about the adventure routes where it's mostly gravel roads and there's challenge sections.
Mhm.
Like all of your events, even your harder stuff, it's laid out so that if you get jammed out, there is what's the political? I'm just going to say there's a bitch out
Yeah,
direction.
yeah,
We always call them that. It's not the right way to say it, but there's an easier way to get around.
yeah,
Everything you do is laid out so well that you can get out. We can say, hey, take this left and go up a mile and come here,
yeah,
and we'll be at the top if you can't
yeah.
do this section. Richmond Hollow does not have that. It's just not there. I mean, there
Yeah,
are spots where you'll drop into a very, very steep hollow, and the only way out is up the next side or back up the way you came.
yeah,
And both are very challenging. There's no make a left and go down this logging road. There just aren't exits.
yeah,
So you please listen to this advice and don't challenge yourself if you're not extraordinarily capable on the bike you're on.
yeah. My recommendation is if you have a smaller bike, a dual sport, an off-road street legal bike-ish thing, then yeah, ride that first, and then that'll tell you if you can bring a
Right.
big bike through it. If you
Right.
only have a big bike, follow us on one of the dual sport loops
Right.
because there
Those
is some,
they're very challenging on a big bike. Matt
yeah,
Keller, uh,
there's some gnarly stuff in
yeah,
between, like the dirt gravel road. Every route pretty much has a dirt gravel road or a paved road, and
yep,
then you're gonna run into some off-road thing that's super tough on any bike.
yep,
And then like some of those spots we use were, lucky enough that there are multiple ways through some of those spots.
right,
And the way that I take people on some of them is the easiest spot.
right.
But if you take the one that parallels it, that one's harder. So if you want a more challenge, take that one and we'll meet you at the other spot. There's stuff like that out there on that. So that's a good place to get your feet wet with it.
Absolutely. Well, watch, like you said, Matt McCourt. Watch his
Yeah.
YouTube channel. What is it? Life Beyond 50. Watch his channel, and he goes through the dual sport stuff down in Wellsville, and he takes his big bike, and he makes it through. But he takes a pretty good spill. He
Yeah.
drops it a few times, and Matt's a pretty capable rider. He's got a lot of years under his belt on that big bike. So
Yeah.
they are all doable excluding the single track. All your routes are doable on a big bike, but it is very challenging. I don't ride. I have a KTM 890. I do not ride it when I'm leading or sweeping because I want to be 100% confident that I can get through everything after a long day when I'm tired and help someone. On my 890, I don't have that confidence that
Yeah.
I can lead and pick up 15 bikes along the way and make all the hard stuff to help someone out if they get in a jam.
Yeah.
You know, is what it is. But
Yep.
but for sure, it's doable on the big bike, but it's going to be a very big challenge.
Yeah. It's going to be a workout.
Yeah.
And you're going to pick up your bike, you're going to fall, you're going to pick it up, you're going to get stuck. All those things are going to happen
Yep.
to
Oh,
everybody.
perfect example. When I just bought that first 890, we did that scouting run
Yeah.
and we were scouting through Wellsville, some of that stuff. And I ate shit really hard on that 890 and it body slammed me in the ground. I thought I cracked a couple of ribs
Yeah.
and I got it out and kept riding and doing some scouting. We hit Brush Creek. I bailed. My
Yeah.
ribs were hurting so bad I thought I was going to die. And Fools was what, 2 weeks away?
Yeah.
Man, last thing I need is cracked ribs to try to lead. So I bailed. I couldn't finish. So it's challenging, no doubt.
Yep. Well, the last thing I wanted to bring up was since we're talking about the Fool's Ride,
Hmm.
um, I have been doing beginner to intermediate ADV and dual sport riding clinics up at Street Track and Trail in Conneaut
Yep.
Lake, PA. And those have been going super well. I've had a blast doing those too, just, being able to, have these small groups of people, usually, 5 people in those groups,
Yep.
come together, throw some trauma their way, show them some skills and drills, and watch them like kind of become a team by the end of it. That's been super fun too.
Yep.
So now, for this coming year, I wanted to expand on that a little bit. So Jim has been gracious enough to open up his property for me to do a couple intermediate plus clinics.
Yep.
So we're going to do 3 of those down at Jim's place. 2 of them are 1 day, one's a 2 day. Ideally, they are for people that have been to one of my beginner intermediate. If you're a pretty good rider, and especially if you've ridden with me before, reach out to me and ask me, and we can have a discussion about you just jumping on an intermediate plus one. But they're kind of, the way I'm intending on building them is to be a building block off of the first one. So we do a lot of these skills and drills at the intermediate or beginner intermediate clinic, and then I will probably do some of those same things with a little extra on them, and maybe add, my goal is to add some other more technical things to it, and then get you out in that fool's ride territory to see if you can drop your bike in the creek just like I do. So anything you want to mention about that clinic thing, Jim?
I think it's a great idea, and I'm so glad that you're doing these events and have had such success in the beginner, with the beginner intermediates, and it only makes sense to push it to that next level, because a lot of people that have taken your classes, some of them you've shared have taken it multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to do that next level for them. And look, I love this sport. I want to see the sport grow. I love seeing how successful you are and the things that you're doing. So it just makes sense for you to do it here, because you can spend that whole day, running the drills here. You can set up stuff. My property's pretty well suited for it, and then take them out and apply those, all the skills they've learned.
Yeah.
Personally, I wish I would have taken some classes, some courses, some training way back in the beginning, because unfortunately I learned by trial and error, and I've how do I put it? I've created some bad habits that I continue, like it works, but I'm doing it the wrong way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to get that foundation and that base, and someone to show you how to do it right from the beginning. That way you can build off of that. I spent 5 years doing things all the wrong way and fumbling my way through it and just twisting the throttle and thinking that would fix it. And there's just so many little subtle nuances with clutch control and balance and weighting the pegs that it's just not a natural thing. You don't just learn that by going out and riding it. Like, you need someone to show you, hey, balancing the peg, or weighting the pegs to turn the bike, or feathering the clutch as opposed to twisting the throttle more. I think it's awesome what you're doing, and I'm glad people in this area, because to my knowledge there's no one else in our area doing it. So I'm glad you're out there putting in the time and getting people that building that solid base to work off of.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see you're doing it, and I'm glad to help support what you're doing. I might come out and take one of the intermediates with you.
Well, I was gonna recruit you to be my sweep for those.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Yep.
Well, I appreciate that, Jim. Anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you want to mention?
No, I think we nailed everything. It's I think you have, this might be a bold statement, but I think you have single-handedly exploded the adventure riding community in our immediate area. I mean, it's we had a few buddies here and there, hit and miss. We'd get together and do some rides, but your Fools Rides and your clinics and the different events you do has really, really grown the community in our area. And I dare say you've spawned off a lot of, this sounds negative, but I don't mean it that way, a lot of copycat, a lot of guys doing the same thing. They've really come to one of your events and fell in love with what you're doing in the community, and maybe they live 3 hours south or 3 hours northeast, west, whatever, and have decided, man, I'd really like to grow this and build the community in my area. So it's really blown up. And I really think a lot of that, a vast majority of that, comes from, from the work you've put in and the events you're putting on.
Appreciate that, man. I'd definitely like to be supportive to the community as a whole. Being able to kind of support Whalen Wayne and Red River Scramble and Soggy Bottom, and coming up this year, the 304 Detour. Like, those are super fun events for me to go and hang out and participate in, and then see a lot of the same faces that have been to my event. That's the whole point, is like building that community. So
for sure. Well, and if anyone ever has doubts of your popularity and your influence in this event, come to a Whale and Wayne event in September, and
Yeah.
when the morning groups all line up to go out on their rides, it's easy to spot canes because you've got 150 people piled into your group. All the other groups are 20 here, 10 here, 30 there, and you've got three-quarters of the entire attendee groups piled into yours wanting to ride with you. And I know that's got to be difficult for you, but it's the price you pay for being famous, Kane.
Maybe infamous.
Yeah, right. No, but honestly, it really goes to show, Whale and Wayne is what, 3-4 hours south of here,
Yeah.
and it's a huge event, and there's so many choices for people who they ride with and where they go, and it's a real testament to what you're doing and how well people like you by the giant crowd that want to come ride with you. People who have probably ridden with you 20, 30 times, you would think, oh, it's old and boring. I've ridden with
Yeah.
Kane. Let me go try someone else. Nope. They want to jump in your group because they know you're going to challenge them, but you're going to keep them safe and you're going to bring them back to where they started.
Appreciate that, man. And I tell you, like, I've had a lot of support over the years. Like, there's been, companies like Griffin, Pacific Power Sports, Purple Lizard Maps, like a bunch of these companies that have been supportive. But without you, for sure, I don't know that I'd be where I'm at. Not that I'm complacent, because I definitely have to keep working more and more
Right.
and harder to make this thing continue to work. But
Right.
without your support, for sure, and making the Fools Ride like it's my flagship event, and to be able to have it, coming into the 5th year, basically
Right.
sold out within 6 weeks, and then you opening up your property for me to do some clinics there as well. Like, I can't state enough how much I appreciate your help and support and friendship, and I'm glad that we're going to keep this thing going.
For sure, man. I'm glad to see this community grow, and like I say, for me, it's fun. It's not a job. I mean, it's a lot of work prepping and getting ready for it, but
Yeah.
it is a blast, and I look forward to it all year long. As soon as it's over, I'm thinking about next year and getting it started again. It's a lot of fun, and it's been a real learning experience for me. I'm glad to
Yeah.
be a part of it, and I've met so many friends. Half of them I can't remember their names, but I've met so many good guys and girls, and that's a point I guess I want to bring up. The female community has really grown. Every
Yeah.
year you get more and more females coming out to this thing, and it's
Yep.
nice to see. It brings a nice softer touch on a bunch of sweaty old dudes out riding telling dick jokes. You know what I mean? We get some feminine side into it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a goal for sure, to bring
Yeah.
more
Awesome.
people in. So,
Awesome.
all right, man. Well, on that note, we'll end the podcast officially, and hopefully everybody enjoyed this, and they'll keep tuning in for future ones. So thanks a lot,
Awesome.
everybody, and thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir. Look forward to seeing everybody in April.